Hey, everybody, we want to welcome Mr. Dan Caldwell to the podcast. Super excited to have him on here. Dan is a freaking rock star entrepreneur, was the founder of I don't know if I would call it a childhood brand. It was more of like when I was like early 20s, teenager, which was super rocking. The founder of Tapout. Really excited to get to know Dan a little bit better today, have him share his story. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for having me on, buddy. I want to hear your story. I hope at some point you're going to interview yourself on your podcast so I can hear the whole story about how you're taking over the world. And of course, we had no idea. We don't know anything about making T-shirts. We were not in the T-shirt printing business. We had no idea how that worked, but we knew it was a good idea. So we just started. From ground zero. Like we're gonna go to these little tiny jiu-jitsu events and small MMA events that they were starting to have at the time that were still illegal in California. But we'd go to these little events. And we would set up a little tiny table. I mean, I have video of us, like 4 shirts all folded up in squares and like 2 hats sitting on top of them because there wasn't enough room. And we would try to sell our goods there. So we understood the concept of we have to go make it happen, but didn't understand the concept of failure really. Like it's a good thing. We understood failure like there's no way we can fail. We can't fail. We got to make this work, especially as we start to spend a lot of money and we're trying to figure out how we don't want to lose the money. You know, we have all this money invested now of our own money. Credit cards are racked up, $20,000. That's back when they give you, you couldn't afford it. They shouldn't be giving you $20,000 or $30,000 credit cards, but of course they do. And we're maxing them all out, trying to keep, the business afloat. So that's a great idea. I somewhat did that with my own kids too. It's the same exact thing, but start a business and have them working. You got to work in the business if you're gonna pay your way here in the family. I think, just in the bigger picture, if I step back, that's the difference of what separates people. Successful entrepreneurs, most of the time, it's just the fact that you're willing to keep going. That you're 6 years in, 7 years in, 8 years in, seeing progress, but not the type of progress that you had dreamed about, and you keep going. And at this moment, I'm thinking, okay, I could go to SeaWorld with my family. Our bags are packed. That was our day. Or I'm actually going to have to tell my little daughter that we have to turn around halfway down there and go back. And Daddy's going to be gone now for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And that's what I had to do. And I turned back around and got home. I had to go straight we had a small warehouse at like 1,900 square feet or maybe 2,200 square feet. And I had to go grab all the clothes, get them all ready. My partner met me there. We jumped in the car. We start driving to Vegas. It's a 4 or 5 hour drive. We get to Vegas, and we ended up sleeping on. Chuck Liddell had this apartment, and we just, we didn't have the money really. I mean, we were making so little money. So much money was on the shelves that we were just paying ourselves enough to pay our rent. We were like, write a check for the rent, write a check for some groceries, and that's it. Everything else we had to figure it out. His girlfriend's working, my girlfriend's working, and we're just being able to try to get by. We just knew something special was going on when we got there because there were so many people in the crowd wearing our stuff, and this guy Diego Sanchez, who was going to be fighting, they made him wear Ultimate Fighter stuff, but we had our 2 logos on the mat, and we had logos on the sides, and we had their parents wearing the stuff, and we could see them on the big broadcast video screen. They kept showing their parents, of the fighters, because that was kind of, these guys were about to fight. And so as they came in, they wanted to see the reactions from their parents, especially even as they were fighting. And they had our Tapout stuff on. And we're like, we're all over this thing. And we're sitting next to Chuck Liddell. And when the Stephan Bonnar fight happened with Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar, which is still considered one of the best fights in UFC history. At one point, these guys are like, they're throwing leather and they're putting everything on the line. And at one point, Dana White walks back and he tells Chuck Liddell there's 10 million people watching this event right now. Well, the UFC in
10 million.
10 million. And in pay-per-view, they were only getting, maybe a few 100,000 views on their pay-per-view shows at that time. But to have on television, the mainstream audience who really may not be totally into the UFC, but they were liking what they were seeing, because that's why 10 million people are watching right now. When we walked into the arena, we had 2 huge Tapout logos on the mat, and we were blown away. We could not believe that these guys had did this for us. And so, I always have to give credit to Dana and Lorenzo for helping us, build. I think when you're relentless and you're always out there pushing and pushing and pushing, and people see this in you, they want your dream to come true too. I know a lot of people preach that everybody wants to stomp on your dream. They don't want you to, be successful. But I think when people see your, the energy that you put into and how much you believe in yourself or believe in a dream, people want to get behind those type of people. The opportunities that having a dream has given me and my partners, is like unbelievable. Like I can't even put into words, because it's something that I never would have thought would have ever happened to a person like me coming from San Bernardino, in the place that I grew up in. I had great parents, but you didn't have a lot of money. I know you have moments in your life where those things have happened for you, and it's just unbelievable to kind of go through a life-changing moment like that. But it's because you keep going. You won't have them as an entrepreneur. You won't have them if you don't keep going. It's crazy how you're in the best place in your life and you're contemplating quitting. That's what comes over you. During the best time of your life, the best things are happening to you in your life, and you're contemplating quitting. You're like, I don't know what to. And that's why it's so great, I think, to have a partner, because when you're down, hopefully they're up, and when they're down, hopefully you're up. And he gave me some great advice when we decided to start our podcast. We were like, we have to do this. I wanted to do it together, because I felt like that was just my MO. And anybody who has partners in their businesses, there's some people who say, I don't want partners in my business. That's okay. That's them. But for me, I'm a partner type guy. And it felt satisfying. But at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like getting up and doing it anymore. And so taking kind of a back seat, because I stayed on as president for the next 5 years, taking a back seat felt like the right thing to do, even though I felt like, so many things could have been done different during that time. And ultimately, we didn't get the position for the UFC, as the main sponsor anymore. And we were changing stores, and a lot of stores didn't work out, so we were in different stores, and it was just a lot of things that didn't happen the way I wanted them to go down, and it became difficult. So I left in 2015, and I felt so good about the experience. I mean, of course, I wish it would have kept going in a positive way, but I felt like we built something pretty amazing. And I'm glad to move on and keep, I want to build the next amazing thing. That's what I'm looking to do now. I love being with my family. I love it's just a different part of my life. And I love how life takes you into these different transitions, and you go through these different moments at the right time in life. I think that's God proposed. I think God takes you through different parts of your life and put you in those places at the right time of your life, and in challenges that you can overcome, and experiences that you can either let go by the wayside, or you can live up to that and build something great.